Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Pour. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Brian.
Today we are tasting the Kentucky Peerless Double Oak. That's something that's kind of caused a lot of chatter out there, so we figured it was time to do a review.
Yep. So little history on this distillery. The Kentucky Peerless, they were originally established in the 1880s. They was first barreled and sold by E.W. Worsham. It's a company in Henderson, Kentucky, but like most of the distilleries, only a few survived the Prohibition, and unfortunately they failed during that period.
Yeah. Turns out whenever you can't manufacture your product and sell it,
it's hard to stay alive.
For like 13 years. It's kind of hard to stay in business, but it was revived in 2014 by a fifth generation descendant, Corky Taylor, which I think is super interesting. That a lot of times these brands are revived by like an investment company or someone who's bought the rights, but this actually was a descendant of the founders of it. So now they're produced at their distillery in Louisville off of Whiskey Row. You can go down there and visit them. They even obtained the original distillery number of 50, and all of their bourbon is barrel proof and is non-chill filtered.
Okay. Well, and this has a lower entry point as far as the proof. It goes in at 107. Kind of helps it maintain some of those flavors. This particular batch is batch 13. Comes in at 108.5 proof, and it's a sweet mash, which is it's kind of different than a sour mash, where you start with the leftovers of the last batch and then kind of go from there. So.
Kind of an interesting thing, and I know Hard Truth, they're near us here in Indiana. They do the same thing. Sweet mash is a big thing for them. Being a double oak, of course, that means it was aged for this bourbon in particular. From the research I've done, is aged 4 years before it is put into a newly charred oak barrel. So it goes into a new charred oak barrel to do its usual aging, then it's taken out of that barrel, put into a newly charred one as well. And MSRP for this, a little bit high, it's around $100. So
yeah, and this is one I've not had, so I'm really looking forward to this.
Glad to have this with you. I think you did mention the proof, so don't need to go into that. But that's a proof point that I really enjoy. I'm not necessarily huge on ultra high proof, and 108 proof. I think, to me, not to be too nerdy, I think low entry proof's where it's at. So if you got a low entry proof, I think you're in business here.
So the appearance, it's definitely dark.
Looks like Coca-Cola to me.
Yeah. For only being 4 years, is it 4 years total?
No, I think it's 4 years of its original age, and then an unknown amount of time in the second barrel.
Yeah. Okay, let's say if that was 4 years, they figured out the aging process.
They must really char the barrels for both of them. But let's go in for the nose here. That's a really good nose.
Get a brown, get a cinnamon smell, or a
to
brown.
me, too, this smells like when you walk through a distillery or through a rick house, the aging whiskey, or when you walk through where the mash is cooking, it just kind of smells like a distillery.
Right.
And then
it's kind of dusty. Like I get where you're saying, like where it's stored at, where some of the stuff's dropping off of it, and you smell it.
Yeah. And then
man, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, there's this, and I usually don't get too crazy with, well, I don't know. Watch some of the videos, I do get crazy. Normally, I can't pick up a lot of different nuances of bourbon, but for this one, specifically, there are these praline pecans that are at Sam's Club, and it's not overly pecan-y, but it like a sweetie.
I do kind of get there. It's like not a
sweet pecan kind of thing.
It's not a normal nut smell, but the pecan. I kind of get that.
And it's faint. It's not like dominant or anything like that, but
that's
really good nose.
It's got a really good nose.
Probably one of those.
It smells like it's going to be like 130 proof, but I don't. Obviously, I think it's going to drink really smooth. But
it's one of those that you could really probably spend a lot of time smelling and hanging out with. But I interrupted your sip there, so let's go for a sip. Yeah. So obviously there's oak there, and there's the char there. and then that comes up front for me, and then towards the middle of the palate is when the sweeter side of the caramel comes into play.
I get caramel all the way through.
Yeah.
If I get a vanilla,
cinnamon.
It starts coating, and it almost coats your whole mouth. It doesn't go all the way down your throat, but it's good. That is smooth.
It's a very good sip. There's a good cinnamon note too. I think I said oak and stuff towards the front, and that cinnamon is towards the front too. And the finish, a lot of char, but a lot of char. Don't let that intimidate you. A lot of char in a good way, because some people don't like that heavy oak. This is done really well. I really enjoy it.
It's a little. I said it was really coated and covered your mouth, but now actually the second sip, it's a little drying in the front.
Yeah.
But it's like I said, it's definitely
Tremendous.
Definitely complex and very very solid.
Yeah. It's one that I think, much like I said about the nose, where you could spend a lot of time. You could spend probably an hour just sitting with this, and you could probably pull out 50 different tasting notes. They're just there's also kind of like this sourdough kind of flavor to it. My mother-in-law makes this sourdough coffee cake thing that it kind of reminds me of that. But if you've never had that, you wouldn't know what that tastes like. but there's a bready note to it that I really enjoy, that I think really balances well with the char flavor that's going on there.
There's a sweetness to it, but it's not a fruit. It's
all caramel and sugary.
Right, sugar. I guess it's probably a brown sugar type feel. But that's solid.
So okay, we got to talk about the price because this was $100 at the liquor store. I think on Peerless's website, I think it's like 120.
Yeah, I think the double oak is more. It seems like their basic offerings are
pretty high too,
78,
something. Yeah, $80. So this is gonna go. I'm sure some places you can find it for $90. So probably gonna be 90 to 120. Is it worth it to you?
I have not purchased this bottle. I did have the opportunity to purchase, and I didn't.
Yeah.
But now after tasting it, I think I would go $100 on that. And actually, if I was at the distillery having fun, I probably would pay $120 for it.
Did a tasting, yeah. We're the same in that you're trudging into a fine line there at $100, and I'm a buyer at $100 on that.
Knowing that you have it right now, I may not.
You're not going to buy.
I may hold off for a few more months.
Gonna come back over and be like, hey, let's review Peerless Double Oak again. No, I'm a buyer at $100 all day. Great. So, obviously, being a double oak, we can the biggest one to compare it to is Woodford. How does this stack up to Woodford?
So, I don't think they taste the same at all. I think the Woodford is just
the char note is similar.
Yeah, it's
similar.
But this is just unique compared to. They're similar in some aspects. But the Woodford Double Oak, you get all the sweetness. You get the brown sugars. You get all that. It's so solid. Woodford Double Oaked for the price.
Of course,
boy, that's tough.
Woodford Double Oak is going up to $60. I mean, for $40 more. You can get this. You get more proof. You probably get a lower barrel entry proof. I don't know if that really means a lot to folks out there, but one thing I think Woodford's nose has a lot more going on to it. I get Woodford Double Oak to me. Once you get past the barrel char, is a lot of like pancakes and maple syrup.
Yeah, that's like I said, it's a dessert.
And that is something I dig all day long, so it's kind of hard to beat that for me. That said, this is a smaller distillery.
It's a little higher proof. So
you get more proof. Getting the proof.
I think that's probably the element that changes it.
And I hate to be this way, but this bottle is freaking cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cool bottle. That's the coolest bottle out there. I mean, I guess Blanton's is cooler, but
right. Well, it adds to the appeal.
It looks like a barrel. It does add to the appeal to it. I would say it's a draw. And I think what you said, that it's hard to compare the two, I don't think you kind of can. Yes, they're both double oaked, but there's so much differences. There's a lot of nuances in Woodford Reserve Double Oak that I think we really dig. There's the proof on this one that I really dig.
I think the proof is probably what puts us over the top. Would make it to where I would probably pick this if I was blinding them together. I think I would go with that just because I prefer a higher proof.
Yeah.
But from just a drinking standpoint, like I said, just having it, like I said, the pancakes and syrup, it's just it's so smooth.
Yeah. Now that you just said that, on the finish, there's a little bit of maple that's coming through, which is probably my favorite note in bourbon is maple. If you have maple syrup, I'm in. I'm a buyer. All right. Well, I think that does it for this one. So like we always end every single episode, when you're with your family and your friends, always share your whiskey. So a little bonus footage for you here. We literally walked out of the bar, turned off the camera, and Brian sticks his nose in and says, I smell maple syrup. We were talking about that Woodford Reserve note.
Pure maple. That's all I got out of it.
And it's extremely bold, and it's a dominant note. And at the tail end of that maple syrup note, you get the char from the double oak. So if maple syrup is a note that you're interested in, I think Peerless Double Oak is something that you'll enjoy.
And it's crazy how whenever we just did the whole tasting, and I didn't get that throughout, and then him saying that, and I went looking for it, and that's all I could smell. Even now, my glass is empty. It's still there. It's just pure maple syrup, and it's just oh my goodness.
Saturday morning,
so good,
I'm going to make pancakes on the Blackstone. I'm going to pour a little bit. No, I'm not, because that's expensive.
Yeah, that's expensive.
I'll use maple syrup for that. No. All right, well, share your whiskey, everybody. That's a really cool note, and it just shows you, like you said, the more you sip and the more you smell, the more nuances that you can pick up in bourbon. That's not unusual. So cheers, everybody.
Cheers.